Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with Pink and Main, and we are going to create some very simple but yet beautiful cards using the contents from their Crafty Courtyard subscription box. And this month's theme, and I'm going to grab it because of course I don't have it in front of me for October, is called Encouraging Words, and this is absolutely true. So of course you always get your card that tells you what's coming in your kit, and then also it shows you the color palette at the bottom, and the other side says the best is yet to come. So let's look at what's inside the kit first. So you get your cardstock, and again the names of these are the Bakery, Paris, Moss, Clear Day, Sunny Sky, and Lemonade Stand. You also get a 6x6 paper pad, and this is called Pastel Dreams, and it is just that. There are some wonderful colors in here, yellows and pinks and purples, and some great plaids. You know, I'm really not a plaid person, but I'm loving these. For some reason I love plaid in cardstock, but not in clothes, just saying. So you get that, and that's really what we're going to be playing with this time. You get some washi tape, so some really pretty blue lines. Get your baker's twine, both variegated or two-colored and solid, some green gems, some silver doilies. You also get your 4 envelopes, as always. Some cute little buttons with some hearts. Of course, our sequin pack. Some white heart buttons. And then you also get an embossing folder, and this is by Doris, and it's got dots that are heavier on one side, and then they get lighter. So if they're falling down on a card, if you do a landscape or a portrait. The beautiful button to add to our collection, and these are your stamps. So some wonderful sentiments here, and the moment that I saw all of these sentiments, I went to town embossing. So what I did, I took all of those sentiments and I stamped and embossed them. Now you can see I have all of this pattern paper cut along the top. That's because I have all of my paper ready to go to build my cards. These are all of the sentiments that I stamped with my Versamark ink, and then I either used white embossing powder or black embossing powder. So here we go. We're just going to put these cards together. So I just kind of had fun. I literally had 4 sheets of the pattern paper left by the time I was done cutting and trimming all of my papers. These are all going to have multiple layers of cardstock. I did not pull in any cardstock from my stash. I'm only using the cardstock that came in the kit. And I'm just layering upon layering. So the plaid has its own layer. The blue polka dot here has its own layer. For me, it's a different look that helps to make those pattern papers stand out and be on their own. All of my card bases are the standard A2 size card bases, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Some are going to be a top folding, some are going to be a side folding. So here I get to just choose which sentiment that I want to use. This time I'm going to choose the best is yet to come, and then I will trim off those corners. And that is our first card. So for our next one, same thing. I've cut a large panel. Now, when I'm using these large panels, they are cut for the most part 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, or they could be cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 if I wanted that small white border. And then my pattern paper is cut to no, that one is cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Yes, I'm confusing myself. Can you tell? I added a purple triangle down on the bottom right hand corner. I chose the sentiment, keep smiling, with the white background, and I'm going to set that right onto my card base. For this one, I'm going to add some of the gems, just a few, just to add a little bit of sparkle to the card. For our next one, we've got lots of layers going on here. So I have a 2-inch square that's going to go on top of a solid piece of the cardstock that came in the kit. And then this one here, no, I think this, I'm sorry, that one is my 2-inch. The other one was 2 1/2. So again, I'm setting my pattern paper on top of my background. I am in love with that plaid. I'm just saying, love that plaid. And you can see just by putting the papers on a mat, it does help for them to stand out. I think if I went directly with these pattern papers on top of that plaid, I don't know if they would be as visible as how I would want them to be. So, you know, you can think about that when it comes to your papers. Do you want your pattern paper to stand out and truly see each of the different papers that you used? I think the matting of them just tends to help that. I'm going to choose the sentiment, hang in there, and straddle that going across those two squares, and I'm going to use my liquid adhesive and glue this down onto my standard A2 size card base. I am going to do a little bit of trimming because obviously I didn't cut it to the right size. Yes, and it just was luck that it ended up even. I grabbed one of the buttons with the hearts, and I'm going to grab some baker's twine, and I'm going to thread this through the holes of the button. Now, I did attempt to thread it without a needle. Yeah, it didn't work for me. Always have issues. Just saying. So once I got that threaded, I just tied it in a knot. I'm going to add a glue dot to the back, and I'm going to adhere that to the bottom square. For our next card, I'm going to create some banners. So I'm going to use my scissors just to notch up the center and then come in from each of the sides to create the fishtail. I'm going to set the green first, and then the blue will come next, and then the peach color. I will use my liquid adhesive for the bottom two banners, and then I will come in with some double-sided foam squares for the top. And then once those are set, I will trim across the top just to make it even with my design base. So we have some fun colors. I'm going to adhere this using my liquid adhesive onto my mat for the back. And for this one, I have all of these sentiments sitting off to the side of me, and deciding which one. Do I want to go with the black background, or do I want to go with the white background? I think, as you can see, when I chose a white or black sentiment background, it changes the card a little bit. I think if I use a white background sentiment, it softens the colors. I felt if I used a black background with my sentiment, it made the colors bolder when it came to the papers. They stood out more with the black. Going to take that right down onto my standard A2 size card base. That was that card. For our next one, I just cut some rectangles. I didn't even measure them. Wanted them to have different shapes because you can layer your cardstocks. You don't always have to have a mat. If you've seen any of my previous videos, I do love to layer my cardstocks. Sorry, I had to stretch and get something there. Just to give it a dimension look and a texture to the papers. So again, you don't always have to have a mat. It just depends upon the print. So for this one, I wanted to choose a black background, and just to make those pattern papers stand out a little bit more. This design panel was cut to be 4 by 5 1/4, and it is against a white, but I do have, you can actually see that border, so it kind of frames it. I'm going to add a few of the gems, and that's that card. So for this card, I am going to layer up my cardstocks again. So I have my one panel. My white panel is cut to 4 5 1/4. The center panel is cut to 3 3/4 by 5. I'm going to stretch my pattern paper strip going across, and I'm going to choose the sentiment, "You've got this," and again using my double-sided foam squares just to prop that up. And I'm going to put that right in the center of the strip going across and trim off the sides. I'll use my liquid adhesive again to set this in place. Obviously, I was talking to somebody and walked away from the camera there. I'm going to add some more sequins, just a few, not too many, just to give it a little bit of sparkle. What's great with a lot of the sequins that I use, they're see-through, they're transparent, so they do have a matte sheen to them. For our next card, I was playing around with the pattern papers. Do I want to go on an angle? Do I want to trim this down? So again, I'm actually, also, even though I have the pattern papers cut, I am also thinking, okay, how do I want to set these in place? That purple one's going to go straight down onto the design base, as you saw, and then I'm going to prop up the second one, just coming off of that just a little bit. But yet I want it the same distance as the other side is. So thinking about my sentiment, and I'm going to choose "Tomorrow is a New Day," and I'm going to use my liquid adhesive to adhere that down, and I want to center that right onto that plaid pattern paper just so that it has a frame coming around it. I'm going to trim off those edges and then get this down onto my standard A2 size card base. I grabbed one of those buttons again with the hearts, and I'm just going to grab a glue dot and put that directly down, and then from the twine I'm going to grab a little bit and I'm going to create a bow just so that I can put that on top of the button. Instead of threading it, this is just another option to decorate a button if you want it to look like there is twine going through it. I do use liquid adhesive to adhere the bow, and then just put a little bit of pressure with the block. So we are almost there. So now I'm going to take these strips, set them on an angle, And I chose a plaid for the center, and I'm using a pink and white polka dot for the borders on each side of it. I will use my scissors just to trim off the edges. And then we will choose what sentiment we want to put on our card. And sorry about that. I literally just hit my knee on my table. Ow! Oh my goodness. And if you heard that slurp, I'm sorry, but I needed some iced tea. This is a long video. Talking a lot. Chose Life is Tough, but Darling, So Are You. And I'm going to add some sequins to this one as well. And then I'm just going to place those around. The tool that I'm using to pick up my sequins, it's called a wax pencil. And it's used for nail art. They can be found on Amazon. At least that's where I get mine. And I've been using the same 3 forever. So you usually get a box of 10. So for our next card, I'm going to use the embossing folder. And you can see the dots that are focused up at the top. So this would be great for a snowfall. You could use them as rain. You know, happy thoughts. All that fun stuff. So I'm going to get a piece of my cardstock along the bottom, and then I'm going to line it with some of the orange-ish cardstock. So I will be adhering that down off of the bottom of that. And then I'll use my scissors, sorry about that, to trim the excess away. Going to mat this using one of the pearl cardstocks that came with the kit. I do want to make sure that I used my liquid adhesive for that because of the texture from the embossing folder. I'm going to use my liquid adhesive again to set it down onto my card base. And the sentiment that I'm choosing is Be Beautiful. So because I know I have double of the sentiments, I'm actually going to use the same sentiment but offset it. So even though you're not seeing the one in the back, I do have this shadow effect going on off of the sentiment. So it kind of helps it to pop off of that white background. So for this one, I wanted to play with the doily. So I was thinking about cutting a circle, chose my against that. This one I did a lot of moving and thinking and all of that. So the sentiment I'm choosing is You Are Loved. And I'm going to do the reverse on what I did on the card just before. I'm going to use the white card to highlight the black card. Going to use some liquid adhesive to set the doily down in place. And then my sentiment is going to sit right on top of that. Now that would have looked just fine, just the way that it was. Just take your sentiment, put it right in the center of it, and it would have been a very simplistic but yet beautiful card. Of course, I can't stop there. I'm going to add some sequins at each of the circled areas of the doily. And then I will also add one of the white hearts to put down just below the word loved. So I'm just going around the circle, and I am making sure that, you know, the colors are not, same colors are not next to each other. Again, just to give it some color. I'm going to adhere one of those white hearts, and then I will grab a piece of twine and tie a small bow and place that on top of the heart. And I'm just going to keep my finger there just for a little bit until my glue holds on to it. So I had a lot of fun with this one, and I believe that this is our last card. I know, I think I got up to 11. So grabbed a lot of these buttons, put them all around the paper, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use liquid adhesive to hold them in place. Because what I want to do is I want to use my craft pick and poke the holes through the heart and through the paper. I mean, the hearts already have the holes, but I just wanted to make sure, I didn't want to try to match up these holes once I started my sewing. So here comes the craft pick, and we are just going to hold the heart down and then go down into each of them. I am cleaning off my craft pick each time I do this, just to clear the glue off of the heart, because it is coming up through the holes. So I like to keep that clean, because I'd forget otherwise to clean it later. I'm going to grab a long stretch of the two-tone baker's twine. I'm going to put that onto my needle. And here I'm just confirming that the needle with the thread is going to go through the hearts. Yeah, that was a good time to check. I know. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going in and out of each of the hearts. I don't want a bow. I'm just looking for that little pink strip to go across the hearts. Now, every once in a while, I do have to wiggle the needle just for it to come up through the cardstock and the heart, or vice versa, but only a little bit. And it's not holding me back, obviously, from sewing all of these hearts. Again, just looking for that strip of the twine to go across the heart. Once that's done, I'm going to make sure that the ties, the ends, are secured on the back using some double-sided tape, because I don't want to lose those. Don't want those to come undone. So I'm just going to grab a small piece and secure my ends down. I'm also going to use that double-sided tape to actually secure this panel onto my card base, only because the thread is adding some different levels of dimension there. So just to make sure that it will stick and stay adhered to my card base, I am going to use that. So I'm going to put that around all four edges. Just to make sure that's going to stick well. I'm going to peel off the release paper and then get that onto my card base. I just think it looks really cute. It's like little chicken pox of love. You're like, okay, never mind. So the sentiment I chose is believe. Yeah, I know, y'all don't believe I just said that. I know. And this time I'm going to choose the sentiment with the black background. I'm going to use some double-sided foam squares to prop that up. And then set that right across in between the hearts. So here are all of the cards, slowed it down a little bit, that we made using the Pink and Main October 2019 Encouraging Words Crafty Courtyard subscription box. I do hope you enjoyed it. All the products that I used will be listed down below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for again stopping by. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I'd love to have you here. Make sure you ring the bell so you know the next video has been released and ready for you to watch. I hope everyone's having a great day, but always remember, because it's always important, always be creative.